Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Male Perspective. I am your host, Lana Reid, and today I'm so happy to be spending time with Andrew Mann, who has just a phenomenal life story about addiction and recovery, and he's also the author of the book, Such Unfortunate. So, Andrew, thank you for making time to hang out with me today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Lana. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate you.
Awesome. So, first of all, I was reading on your book review about your personal story, and I don't think anybody else can tell it better than you. So can you share with us like how it got to be where you are today, this man in recovery?
Sure. I grew up in a very abusive household as a child. On the outside, things looked like everything was going well, but behind closed doors, it was a nightmare I lived in. And because of that, I developed anxiety and depression, and was sent to doctors at a very young age. And everyone looked at, even the doctors, they looked at, okay, well, you've got anxiety and depression, that's the problem. But nobody looked at what's going on behind that's causing this. It was just, you have anxiety and depression, let's throw drugs at it. And so when I was 14 years old, I was prescribed an adult dose of Xanax, which is a very strong drug, and for a 14-year-old, and the doctor didn't say, well, okay, because I was having such bad panic attacks that I maybe needed it for a couple days, but they just gave me the drug and said, take it. And so throughout high school, I was on Xanax the whole time, and your body built up a tolerance to it. So you go from, taking one a day to two a day to just no matter what you're doing, the same won't give you the same reaction. So it won't kill anxiety. So I think I was taking 8 Xanax bars every day by the time I was a senior in high school. And I mean, a half of a Xanax bar would knock a person out for a day if they didn't have a tolerance. So, it wasn't the answer to stopping my anxiety or the depression. So I looked for other things and, even marijuana. And then I started drinking alcohol because at first alcohol worked. But I was mixing Xanax and alcohol together to really self-medicate. That's why I was taking this. I wasn't trying to go out and get high and have a great time. I was dying inside. But before I turned 21, I took myself to the emergency room. I think it was 51 times, believing I was dying of a heart attack. That's how bad my anxiety was. Every day when I woke up, I lived in, I really and honestly believed that was my last day alive. It was like I was going on death row every day. I believed I would wake up and believe I was going to die.
Now, did any of the adults in the household, did they know that you were up to 8 Xanax bars a day, or were they aware of that?
I don't know if they were aware of how much I was up, but in my household, that was kind of the solution to problems. My mom, at very young age, I remember when I couldn't sleep, gave me one of her Valium. And she used to be prescribed a bunch of different medicines herself. So that was kind of the way you handle things. You take those. But for me, it just went way out of control. So through high school, I don't know how I made it through high school. I think I just barely squeaked by. Trouble started to come into play right after I got a car. 2 weeks after I got my first car, I got arrested for DUI on a Sunday morning. And, everyone was like, oh, that's a terrible thing to do. But nobody said, why is there a 17-year-old kid that's drunk out of his mind at 11 o'clock on a Sunday morning? So I didn't really have any repercussions from that in my life. And so I just kind of went on the same track. And my parents just said, you go to college. And college accepted me to get in with my grades, which was, I don't know how that happened because, like I said, I just was passing grades because I didn't wake up and I wasn't like, hey, this is what I'm doing for my future. It was, am I going to be alive today?
Yeah.
So while other kids are thinking about getting good grades and careers and stuff, I'm thinking about am I really, like, I'm going to die, and what's death going to be like?
Mm-hmm.
And, which eventually really starts to wear on you, anyone, even, and especially a child, because you don't know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to college, and before I went to college, my parents actually brought me to a psychiatrist because so many people had said, there's something wrong with him. And the woman they brought me to wasn't the doctor that was giving me the drugs. She was a specialist that was supposed to be able to see if someone was ready for college or needed help. And when she talked to me, she said to my parents, she said, I don't know why you're thinking about college. He needs to be in a hospital or in a severe, like, under medical care. You have a sick child. And they didn't listen to that. And it was, okay, thank you for your advice. Like, we paid you for your advice, but he's going to college. And it just, so I went to college. Things got worse. I failed out. And when I came back, I was introduced to opiates. And opiates at first were like an answer to all my problems, because they got rid of the anxiety. They got rid of the depression, which was the first time in my life for so long. And I really thought I had found a miracle cure. It came in a prescription bottle from a doctor. I said, this is, I didn't think I was a drug addict. If someone told me a drug addict, I'm like, taking a prescription bottle, these drug addicts are the people on the street, but I was. And and at first they really did. I mean, I stopped drinking. I stopped taking, I lowered the amount of Xanax I was taking, everything. Like, I started acting like a normal person. Because what I found is when a child's abused at a young age, their brain doesn't develop regularly. So you don't produce the same amount of chemicals that another child produces. And there are like endorphins, serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine. When you don't have those right amount of chemicals, when you wake up in the morning just to get out of bed and do things which other people are excited to do, and is like 10 times the effort for you.
Yes.
So going to class and enjoying, like, you're sitting there bored out of your mind, while other people are, oh, I'm excited, I'm going in. And so it just makes everything 10 times harder in life for you. While when I took that opiate, the normal person that had a normal limbic system took an opiate, most of them throw up when they take it, and they, or they just feel so loopy out of their mind because they have a normal limbic system. For me, I just felt normal. I wasn't high. I wasn't nodding out. I took a Percocet, was the first thing. I took one Percocet, and I was just like, oh my God, I feel normal. And I actually went back to school on Percocet and got A's doing it. And like completely, I wasn't going out drinking every night. And it was like the answer, what had been missing in my brain. The problem is they're illegal. I'm not legally able to take them. So, and you become physically addicted to them.
Okay.
So, and basically, so at first I was getting them from doctors, and then I would buy them off the streets. And it led to what had happened was the pharmaceutical companies started pushing OxyContin. And so it became available everywhere, and everybody started doing it. And the next thing I know, OxyContin is like Percocet, where it's just a concentrated form of it. But it's like, it's almost like the company developed it to get people addicted, really, the way they developed it. I mean, if you know what I know, there is no way they didn't know, as doctors and the company that developed that, there's no way they didn't know that people were going to become addicted to it. And they pushed it, and it just suddenly became everywhere. And then all these people were doing it. And so I started taking that, and it started getting spiraling out of control. So my life just went downhill, went to horrible places. I ended up on the streets of Camden. I mean, I get into it in the book, but I ended up homeless on the streets of Camden, New Jersey, shooting heroin in my veins. Started out from one Percocet to that. And, the book really takes you through everything I went through. I got to see a part of life. I ended up going to jail, homeless jail, and I ended up dying and being brought back to life. So in AA and NA, they say there's 3 ends to drug and alcohol abuse. They're jails, institutions, and death. And I've been through all of them.
Oh, wow.
And amazingly, one of the things that, you'll read in the book is when I had finally been able to beat my addiction, everyone got me to where I was a lost cause. They'd given up on me. Everyone did, except one woman who literally would refuse to give up on me. And through her, I mean, she was an amazing person. And through her, I was able to find strength to overcome this addiction. But then after I did that, I started seeing how many people were dying from this addiction over and over, and how many people are misinformed about what is really going on out there. And then I started seeing how many families this is really affecting out there. Just seems like everyone knows someone that's been affected by this in one way or another. And, I've seen the way the laws hurt rather than help people. I've seen the way the criminal justice system's set up. It's just, if you're poor, you're at such a disadvantage in the criminal justice system, because I've been both. I've had money and I've been poor. And I've seen the way we handle addiction in this country, and it's so wrong. It really is. And it's gotten to the point in the beginning of my book, I mentioned that more people die every year from now drug use than died in the whole Vietnam War, Afghanistan, and Iraq every year in the United States.
Wow.
So, I mean, you saw how many people were in the streets protesting Vietnam, and everyone's all that. We've got a war going on in our country, on our streets, and how this isn't more focused. And I mean, like some of the people that are dying, and I had a friend who was from India, and he was a great guy. He actually really helped save my life at one point. But he had, and he was going to become a doctor. His whole goal in life was to cure cancer. He was actually in medical school. He was in a car accident, got prescribed this Oxycontin, became addicted to it, was able to finally get clean, but there's such a strong pull on you after a while. His wife was pregnant and they were going to have a daughter. And he's like, I never wanted my daughter to see me. He didn't want his daughter to see him high. So he said before she was born, he was going to use one more time because it had such a pull on him. When he did, he overdosed and died. So, I mean, and that's just, if you go down, the people I've become, I've probably been to 30 funerals in the past 3 years. Oh yeah. I mean, it's got to the point, it's what they've started to do is add fentanyl to heroin. Because what happens is people will become addicted through the prescription drugs, and then they will go and they'll find heroin and street drugs. And heroin gets this terrible name. People think heroin, oh my God. But it's really no different than the stuff you're getting from the doctor. From Oxycontin and heroin are like, they're on the same level when it comes to that stuff. So it just sounds a lot worse. And then one of my a young guy that I was in rehab with, his mother just couldn't understand she just couldn't figure it out. And she kept asking me. And that was one of the things I said, and so the inspiration for the book really came. When I was in this rehab, a counselor I had, she said, write down a little bit about your life. And I did. I wrote down a little bit about it. She was like, wow, this would make an amazing book. So that's kind of where it started. And when I found some of my friends' parents that would be like, why did you get it and they didn't? Or, and why was he doing this? And did he not love us and all this? So I wanted to write a book that people would really understand what it's like to be a drug addict. And, and that was really my goal for this. I wanted to help as many people that were addicts to say, because if someone like me that was as down and as low as I was can get this, anyone that's a drug addict can. I really believe that.
Okay, much needed. So you've mentioned rehab. I'm curious, in your own personal story, was it one visit to rehab or was it multiple visits to rehab?
Multiple visits, yes.
Okay. So what do you think, now doing self-reflection, what do you think it was about that last stint at rehab that the light bulbs just clicked and said, you know what, let me get this right? Okay,
a couple things. There needs to be enough time. The first rehabs I went to, I just did 30 days. And then I went right back to the environment I was in. Okay. If you have an opiate addict, their brain is not ready in 30 days to fight off the cravings.
Okay.
More time is needed. The insurance companies normally, when it comes to opiates, will pay for 5 to 7 days now. They used to only pay for 2 to 3 for detox, which is insane. But it really should be 2 weeks, but at least a week in detox. And then I would recommend 3 months. If you can't do 3 months in a treatment center, do a month in a treatment center and 3 months in an aftercare setting. What I mean by the aftercare setting, they either have like a halfway house where you're around other people that are doing the recovery bit with you, and they are going to meetings and going through the same struggles. Because when you come out of a rehab, you're kind of in this cocoon where other people are going through the same struggles. You can talk to them, relate to them, which is a great thing. But then they're thrown right back into the world, and it's like nobody understands it. What are you talking about? Yeah. Well, don't you want to go out and drink with me tonight? Do you want to do, and it's, those were the mistakes I made. I went right back into that. That is probably the biggest one. Was this is not something that can be fixed like that. And so I would recommend getting involved at least 3 months of some kind of treatment or aftercare. And then when you're done with that, then getting involved, either AA, NA, they can be great. They can be very helpful. They're not the only things out there. There's another problem that I've seen, that a lot of people they'll be addicts and they'll go to AA meetings, and the people will say, just talk about alcohol. And then they weren't involved with alcohol. So they just give up, and they just say, you know what, this isn't for me. And they'll say, well, I can't get it then. And AA and NA are not the only, there's Smart Recovery. If you go online, there's a ton of other recovery groups, but you need to find other people that are doing it that you can meet with and you can talk, and that have been there and that understand what you're going through. That's really important. It is.
Now you mentioned something, and I think it's very important, but at the same time, I think it's very difficult for a person who's in recovery. You can't go through the process of going through rehab and then plop yourself right back in the environment that you came from. But on the flip side, that's all you have to go to sometimes is right. That. So
it's true.
Where's the balance?
Yeah, that was the hard, because that's all I had to go to. What I did find out was a few things. Like I said, the halfway houses, they do have them that someone can go to temporarily and then go back after they have enough time. Or if you're going to go back to your area, you need to get a sponsor and go to a meeting the day you get back there. If you're only in treatment for 30 days, a lot of treatment centers are now 6 months. There's a place I went to in New Jersey, Integrity House. It's like 6 to 24 months, but a lot of them 6 months or more. The shorter term ones, the day you get out, they said the most important, like the people that stay sober, the first day they go to a meeting, they raise their hand and say, listen, I'm new, I need help, somebody help me. And a sponsor will come up, and that's somebody that you call every day to get in the habit of doing that. They take you to meetings, and get you back into that. And it's to be able to have somebody to relate to, and I think it's a great idea. But that was probably the biggest obstacle that I found. The second one was, if someone does get into, does come home and they relapse, a lot of times people get this thing with their family, that their family thinks if they relapse, it's the end of the world, they're done and everything like that. And so the person will then hide it from his family instead of going to the family, look, I messed up, I need help, will you watch me? But they don't want to tell their family that because they think it's the end of the world. So they keep it hidden, and then it just spirals. And by the time the family finds out the person's stolen, there's hurt feelings, it just is a nightmare. So I believe if you're open with your family and say, listen, especially if it's your first time, relapses do happen. It's great if you can get it the first time, but realistically, I think only 3% get it the first time. The numbers are down, but there's other options also for opiate addicts. There's methadone and Suboxone. Methadone is people go to a clinic and they can get it, and Suboxone, you can get it from a doctor. They have a little bit higher success rate, but then again, it's something you have to go and get every day. Methadone sort of quiets the cravings. There was a point in my life and I took it. And if the access to it was easier, it would have been better. But that's the main problem with methadone. People have to go to a clinic. As long as you pass drug tests and stay clean, they give you take homes, but it's not as easy as just going to a doctor, get a prescription written, which is kind of sad because it's the only drug that's treated like that to keep the clinics in business. And it can save so many lives. It's just,
Gotcha.
insane. It's terrible, but it's another thing that I've talked about in my book too.
Okay. Now
But
you mentioned NA and AA, and these are kind of the big names that we always hear when it comes to addiction and recovery.
sure,
But do you see any problems with them? Are they
sure.
successful or?
No, there's definitely problems with them.
Okay.
Absolutely. Especially in AA, like I talked about, people go in with a drug problem, they're told not to talk about it. Listen, if you're addicted, a drug is a drug is a drug. Alcohol is a drug just like cocaine's a drug, you know?
Hmm.
So you substitute alcohol, drug, it's the same thing. It really is. It comes down to, and the problem is people end up focusing too much on the drug. And the drug is just a symptom of a problem inside of you. If you're an addict or an alcoholic, everyone, oh, the drug, what was your drug of choice? My problem is really something inside of me that is wrong. The
Okay.
drug, that's just a small symptom. It's that much of the part. It's the
Mhm.
part that everyone talks about, but really the problem is what's going on inside of me. That's what you need to fix.
Okay.
And the program, a lot of it can be good for people, but it can also be disheartening, especially for addicts, because AA, I guess there's a lot of old timers that, were pure alcohol. It's becoming less and less of that. It's becoming more now. Nowadays, drugs are more of the thing. If somebody is an alcoholic, they've done drugs as well.
Okay.
But the old timers were just, they kind of shunned the drug addicts, so they would feel out of place. Then you can go to NA, but a lot of people feel there's better recovery in AA. But it's definitely not the only way, because they kind of make people feel like if you don't get it this way, well, then you're done.
Okay.
And they give them that all or nothing, and I don't believe it. If AA or NA doesn't work for you, people have gotten sober through smart recovery. They've gotten sober through church. They've gotten sober on their own,
Mm-hmm.
So I just, I don't like that all or nothing thing. I don't think it's helpful,
Okay. Okay.
and I realize they love their program and they're all for it, but,
Yeah.
you know,
Okay.
just,
Now, through the course of my life, I found myself sometimes walking a tightrope with people that I encounter, maybe family members, friends, or whatever, that have gone through the recovery process. Maybe they have been a drug addict or whatever, but
sure.
they're recovered now. But they do things that are very odd to me, like they'll start drinking, and I'm always saying to them, "Well, you just substituted one addiction for the other. Am I wrong or no?"
I mean, you're right. If someone, it depends. Say someone was a heroin addict and they quit heroin and started becoming an alcoholic.
Hmm.
I wouldn't say that's a good thing.
Okay.
So no, I wouldn't advise that. And they always say, like a lot of alcoholics will relapse because they went to the dentist and got a Percocet. So they'll take a few Percocets, and that's not their drug of choice. It's a different thing. But then that will lead them back to the alcohol. And after the Percocet prescription, they're back drinking alcohol.
Okay.
So yes, it is substituting one for another. When you're giving it to yourself and it's not a doctor's care, and like, there are people take antidepressants, like I said, Suboxone or methadone. If a doctor's giving it to you and you're taking it the way a doctor is, that's not, you're doing it under a doctor's care. You're not doing it sneakily. You're not buying it illegally. That is not. But if you're drinking, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I would definitely, if anyone is a drug addict, drinking is not a good thing for
Okay.
them. Okay.
Now, you've been through this recovery process quite a few times. You have a circle of people around you that you've watched go through recovery. What made you successful when so many times we don't see people be successful with recovery?
Believe it or not, and I get into this in the book, I grew up in a household. I was never shown love in any form or another. So a lot of the thing that I think was missing inside of me, why I reached for drugs, is when you do opiates, it's kind of also like a big hug almost in a way of getting shown love. And one of the main things that was different this time is I actually had a person that showed love to me, and how I believe, because in my life, when you're not shown love by your parents, when you've been abused as a child, you don't really believe someone would love you. But when someone stuck by me when they had no reason to, everyone told them not to. And the whole time I was in there, she wrote me every day saying, you're a great person. I love you. You know, there's a bracelet she got me, 2 of these that I still wear that, you know, just to remind me that I can do this and that you're loved, you know, and this was years ago. It's actually worn off, but I still wear it. So, and I actually started to believe this person actually loved me. And that had such a profound effect on me that because I did a lot of things I was supposed to do, but I would white knuckle it for a few months, but there was always something missing that I was always searching for. And you'll see it in the book. I think that piece that was able to push me over, you know, I still do the other recovery stuff, but I think finding someone that loved me sort of healed a big thing that was wrong in me. So,
Okay.
you know.
Now that you're at this stage, and I'm not sure if your parents are still with us, have you been able to mend your relationships with what initially caused the problem?
My dad passed away.
Okay.
And my mother and I, it's just not a healthy situation for me
Okay.
at the moment. So
Okay. Okay.
I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever be able to have that. You know, it was a very abusive household. I mean,
Okay.
so it was for the time being. Right now, it's just, you know, I need to have some distance in that. But
Okay.
that's a good thing
And
about having a sponsor in AA or NA. You can talk to them about that stuff and get their advice. So.
okay. And how long have we been sober, Andrew?
Almost 3 years. In March, it'll be 3 years. So
Congratulations.
for me,
Congratulations.
I couldn't get 3 days. So that's a miracle. So,
Awesome. Awesome. Now you mentioned one of the things that you attribute to your success is that you finally found somebody to really just love you.
correct.
And a lot of times when we read the various or look at or watch the various stories about addicts, they do have people in their lives, loved ones that genuinely love and care about them, but they struggle with how to help the addict. And a lot of times you'll see, and I think it's popular on TV, they have the show, the intervention. You're like, I'm gonna get my loved one intervention, but I feel that until the addict is ready, there's no amount of intervention you can force your loved one to take. I mean, what do you do, or what do you advise us as
Okay.
loved ones?
There's a couple things. Okay. There's something that they call tough love, but it gets misconstrued and taken the wrong way, and it gets blown out of proportion. You should not feed someone's addiction, so they just keep using. And I'm going to throw money at you. On the one spectrum, that's the one extreme, and then the other extreme. Okay, you're using. It's the end of our relationship. Get away from me. I never want to talk to you. You want to find a happy medium in between. If the person's willing to get help, you can say to this person, listen, I will stick by you as long as you're willing to get help. But if you're not willing to get help, I'm not going to sit here and feed this addiction because you're going to kill me and you at the same time.
Okay.
You know, because when a person is in that, say the person's a completely honest person and they will not steal from you. When you put the withdrawal effects, that person, it's not about that person getting high. That person literally feels like they're drowning and they need that drug to save themselves.
Okay.
And so they're going to steal. It's just not a good situation to put yourself in. So I would recommend, if you find out your loved one's using, there's some people that, just cut your family member off and throw them to the wolves. If you want them to die, yes, fine. Just throw them out there and say goodbye. If you want them to get help, the smart way to do tough love is to say to your family member, listen, you need help. If you want us to stick behind you, we will. We'll be here, but you need to go show us you're going to get help. We're not going to just sit here, throw money at you and feed your addiction because they're not going to get clean. That's not going to, it sounds nice. And the drug addicts are probably like, yeah, but that's not what you want to do. Absolutely. But you do not just, okay, throw them out. I heard that. And I've seen people literally do that and their family member die or some, just horrible things have happened that. So listen, if your family member says to you, I don't care, you can throw your sport off me, I'm going out to use. Yeah, you're right. You can't, there's nothing you can do to stop them.
Okay.
There isn't. Until they're ready, until they have enough pain. But if it's got to the point where you know about it, I'm sure they've probably been in a difficult situation or two, and there's something in their brain that maybe I have a problem. And most addicts that I met don't like living like that.
Okay.
I don't think people think they're out having a party. Being an addict is a miserable, horrible, awful way to live.
Okay.
It's being a prisoner in your own body. It's just terrible.
Good tips. Now, when you go through recovery, rehab, there's a transition period when you're coming out of it where family interactions, relationships are very broken because normally the addict has lied, probably stole or whatever. So there's a period of rebuilding trust. It's a very difficult period. Um,
Absolutely.
so on both ends, how do we do this process of rebuilding family relationships?
Right. Well, I think a time is definitely a key piece in that.
Okay.
No one is going to expect you to trust somebody in the first couple days or first couple. You're not just going to come out, oh, just trust me. It just doesn't work like that. No one expects that. But if your family member is doing the right thing, eventually you're going to see a big difference in them from the way they were. And it's almost like there's this I don't know if it's God or this universal thing. Whenever I was doing the right thing, good things happened to me. Not everything good in the world happened. There is still some bad. But when I did the wrong things, it's just amazingly negative things kept happening in my life, over and over. So you're going to see good things start to happen in that life. You can tell the person. It's going to get to the point where you're going to know when you can trust them. If that makes sense.
Okay.
It may be a year, it may be 2 years, but it's going to get to a point where you're going to say they have enough time. It'll gradually come. And I think, of course, in the beginning, everyone is skeptical. They're probably skeptical. And is it a good idea to trust someone right when they come? No, it just isn't. What they're fighting is so difficult that it's not that they want to lie to you or they want to steal from you, but it's really, if you knew what it felt like, I know I hate when people say that, but really, if you knew what it felt like, it's literally like being controlled by an evil robot. It's bad. So that trust, it takes time. Time is the ultimate when it comes to that. Yes.
Give it time. Okay, well, this went fast. I'm enjoying talking to you. We're at the end of our 30 minutes, so I'm going to do my random question, but
right.
I see my friend in the background. He stood up. He's tired of me and you talking.
Oh, yeah. Lola, say hello.
Hey.
Say hello.
Hey.
Tucker, you want to get on here too? Come here. Come here. Come say hello. Tucker dog. Come here. Here's the pug. Say hello, Tucker.
So they help keep your peace of mind, your sanity, huh? Hey, babies. I love the four-legged creatures. Hey.
Say hi.
Animals are better than people sometimes.
Oh, they really are. They're great.
Okay, we're going to do the random question.
All right, random question.
Let's see what we got here.
All right.
Oh, what is the worst thing about being male?
Worst thing about being male? Let's see. Worst thing about being male. Wow. That's I guess just the expectation that you always have to put on a tough guy front and you're not supposed to cry, and you just have to sometimes it forces us guys to sort of pretend sometimes. It's hard. That I think that's the worst part about being male. You're always expected to be put on the manly face and tough guy and no crying and no emotional side. And I think that is probably the worst part I've found about being male.
Great answer. Okay, so now I want you to tell everybody how they pick up a copy of Such Unfortunates, because I hear there might be some hubbub that maybe, fingers crossed and the universe works out. We might see it on the big screen.
So
tell us how.
Awesome. So yes, I can get it at Amazon, Target also, and Barnes and Noble, but it's also available on Audible, which is you can listen to the audiobook of it. It's not me speaking. Somebody else did it for me and read it. But Amazon, it's available in ebook and paperback. Right now, the paperback's the ebook is at a discount at $3.99, which is a pretty good deal for that. But yes, I would appreciate it if they did that. And I'd be interested to hear what they say. You can always contact me. I have an author page that they can contact me. I also have a Facebook page. It's at Facebook at Amazing New Book. And so Yeah, I would appreciate if you guys checked it out. It's such unfortunate. My name is Andrew Mann. I'm the author. It's a true story of, like we just discussed, and I really be great if it was on the big screen. It's just a lot of people said it would make a great movie. It could help a lot of people. So hopefully this gets picked up. We'll see. It'd be great.
So now that we're closing up, I'm thinking you have such a phenomenal story. And I think a lot of people need to hear. Do you do speaking at places or?
I do. I go to rehabs all around here and do.
Okay.
So
okay.
I do.
So is there some contact information that you want to give out that maybe
Sure,
people?
you can put my email. It's andym81577@gmail.com.
Okay.
Or they can contact me on the Facebook page or through my author page on Amazon. So,
Okay.
absolutely.
Awesome. Yes. I think, a lot of people, different age brackets, everywhere will be touched by your story and need to hear it. So
I've even had a doctor, two of them, write to me and said they're going to treat addicts better, and it really opened their eyes after reading my book.
yeah,
So,
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of shift. I mean, I just read recently in the last couple of weeks or so, some major drug companies, they have legal consequences they have to pay now and stuff. So
and they should.
yes, it's all coming full circle now. So yeah, awesome. Well, we're at the end of 30 minutes. I really enjoyed you and
Me
the puppies and everything.
Yes,
It was good information you gave out. Just thank you. And to another 3 years, and then another 3 years, and another 3 years. I'm cheering for you over here.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. It's
Amazing.
awesome. I really enjoyed speaking with you. Okay.
Likewise. Thank you. So that is the end of this episode, everybody, of the male perspective. I will see everybody next time.